morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. On today's show, Kyle Bauer visits with Isabella Chism to talk about Ag Day and how she became chairman of the event. Then enjoy this week's Kansas Soybean update. Next, Duane Toews and Brackett talk about meat export markets and the program Ask Chuck. Then it's this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update, and we'll end with Plain Talk featuring Kyle and Duane. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Up first today, Kyle Bauer and Isabella Chism talk about Ag Day and her role in the event.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I'm visiting with Isabella Chism. We're going to be talking Ag Day, but first I want to talk about how Isabella has come to be the chairman of Ag Day, because it's quite a journey, and it kind of brings out how Ag Day is really done by agricultural organizations. So Isabella, how is it you came to be the chairman?
Well, it's an interesting path, and as many people, we wear many different hats. So I started out by being elected second vice president of Indiana Farm Bureau. Because of having that position, I was able to run for the Women's Leadership Committee vice chair position with American Farm Bureau. And then because of that position, I had a place on the board, if I wanted to accept it, on the Agriculture Council of America, which drives the National Ag Day event. And then I was elected as chair of the Agriculture Council of America for this year.
Now, I want to make sure everyone understands all of those are unpaid positions.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm a volunteer, what's called a volunteer leader. And I do this because this is my passion. It's what I love. I'm a city girl married to a farmer, and I've learned what agriculture does, and it touches every moment of my life from birth to death.
But all of those organizations that you mentioned have hundreds of volunteers like yourself that are doing that type of work.
Absolutely. Doing all kinds of work. Ag Day, for example, is something that's held throughout the country in various communities, locations, schools, and I think it's the celebration there in March that they're all looking forward to.
Now, the Ag Day that you're chairman of, does that mainly involve activities in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, the National Ag Day event is in Washington, D.C., March 19th, 2019, and we have a series of activities, but what we're really hoping to do by having that celebration is that we're celebrating what has been done throughout the entire year, throughout all of the communities in the states.
So what does it involve in Washington, D.C. then?
Well, a series of receptions, because you can't be in D.C. without having a reception. But the main points that we have is we have students there that they're learning how to talk to their legislators, and then they actually go to the Hill. We also have the presidential proclamation. Last year it was presented by Vice President Pence and Secretary of Ag Sonny Perdue, and we're hoping to duplicate that or whatever we come up with that's better than that, perhaps. And then we also have our press club event. And what that is we are looking to have a series of young people come in, a group of young people come in and talk with the Ag Secretary, Sonny Perdue, and just have a conversation about the future of agriculture and what they're looking at and what they're seeing and what he's seeing, and as far as his role goes as well. And then a series of 2 to 3 TED Talks after that with high-profile ag-specific, what's happening now type.
And how long will you be the chairman?
I will be the chairman through this activity, so it's 1 year.
We're visiting with Isabella Chism. She's from Indiana, but she's heading up the Ag Day celebration in Washington, D.C. this March. This is Kyle Bauer reporting. Back to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Kyle. Stay tuned. This week's Kansas Soybean update is coming up next here on Farm Factor.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about employee safety and work comp coverage. On your farm, do you ask your friends to come help? Are they considered employees or neighbors helping neighbors? Did you know that you can be held responsible just as if it's a work comp accident, give me a call. We can discuss. 316-945-6733.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Greg Anderson is joining us. He is a Nebraska producer. He serves on the governing board with the National Biodiesel Board. And in this day and age of what we see with low commodity prices, so much of the benefit for biodiesel is out there, specifically if you see what the return is for the farmer out there.
Absolutely, Greg. Now more than ever, we realize how important biodiesel is to our profitability and the means to get to being profitable on our U.S. farms. I look at my soybean crop and I look out there and I can see that every field brings value to the tune of $35 to $40 an acre. Just equate it to 63 cents a bushel. The economic studies have shown, and that's a very conservative figure, by the way, that it brings 63 cents per bushel to every soybean bushel that we raise. Just reflect on that for a moment, and as the producer gets his check from the elevator or grain merchandiser or wherever he sells his soybeans, if we were to take 63 cents off of that, it'd be devastating. And so biodiesel is helping underpin those soybean prices, creating demand for soybean oil, which is the big factor in all of this. And if we didn't have biodiesel, we'd be really hurting pretty bad.
Especially for MBB only being 25 years old to develop that type of demand. And people think, well, it's 25 years, but it's incredible to what's been going on.
It is. Really, the soybean farmers and their checkoff established the biodiesel industry in the United States. As we look back just at the last 10 years, soybean oil into biodiesel production has increased 300%. And we're now using over 7 billion pounds of soybean oil every year to make biodiesel. That equates to about 1/3 of our domestic crush in the United States. And so it shows how over time we can continue to build this market even to greater heights.
The ability to see the demand continuing to rise because those markets and those opportunities are out there.
USDA has projected again for 2019 that soybean oil used for biodiesel production will increase once more to about 7.6 billion pounds. And so to think that we're knocking on the door of 8 billion pounds, we're continuing to raise a lot of beans. There's a lot of beans in the carryout. But here's a demand factor for the oil side that is really, really important. And knowing that gives confidence, I think, to people who raise soybeans for a living and can grow, and knowing that this market is really asking for even more.
All right. Greg, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
That is Greg Anderson, who is a member of the governing board of the National Biodiesel Board. He's been our guest on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us after the break for more with Duane Toews and Jared Brackett.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back. Now we learn about meat exports with Duane Toews and Jared Brackett.
Duane Toews joining you once again here on Ag AM in Kansas, and an opportunity to catch up with Jared Brackett, Secretary-Treasurer of the Cattlemen's Beef Board. Jared, a lot of exciting things. In the beef industry, obviously, we always like higher prices, but you don't always get what you want. But what we do have is a tremendous spot in the marketplace and a product that people desire.
We definitely do, and I think a lot of that's reflected in today's marketplace. One of the things at the Cattlemen's Beef Board that we're kind of excited about is our current export market and our contractors and the work they're doing in that export market. We currently are on track to export $8 billion worth of product this year. That's a huge number. You run that back on a per-head basis, it's about $338 for every animal that's slaughtered. That's additional value put on that carcass and on that animal, which directly impacts our producers and puts more money back in their pockets.
We think about the realities of that. There's a lot of folks that just don't understand why exports are so important. They kind of have that let's keep it here at home mentality. Well, our producers out there are doing a tremendous job and far outpace what we can consume domestically in all realistic expectations.
Very definitely. We have to export product. If we didn't, our prices would definitely be a lot lower. And the other thing on that is there are certain products that we don't want to eat. There are certain things we don't want to eat here in the United States. I don't know when the last time you had tongue or liver, but boy, I sure don't like that very much. And I'd much rather send the livers to Egypt and the tongue to Japan, and let's get paid extra money for that product and let them enjoy that. And, that's a sort of that export and trade agreements we have.
It's the work of some outstanding groups that make those trades happen. Obviously, building relationships around the world is pretty important. Folks like the U.S. Meat Export Federation certainly are a part of that.
They definitely are, and they do a great job as one of our contractors. The other thing that we like to point out to people that, as a producer, we're grassroots, and as we're growing and moving forward, the last study we did showed that for every dollar that the producer sends the Cattlemen's Beef Board, on average, we return about $11 back. That's a huge success story, especially in this day and age of shrinking budgets.
We talk about communications, and it's always important, whether from the boss to the employee or from the beef board to those folks that are supplying those checkoff dollars to the board, understanding that the ultimate goal is always the same: to increase beef production, to increase beef profitability for those producers and increase consumption as well.
Definitely is. And, we have some of the best producers out there. And sometimes there's some misinformation floating around out there. And we'd really like to work on combating that a little bit. We've done a really good job of reaching our consumer, but not quite as good a job reaching our producer. So we're trying some new things. We'd like to try some mailers and get some information back into their hands. Let them pick up some literature at some of the sale barns, because they don't always see some of the digital information, the digital platforms we're using. So it's important that those consumers are reached, but we also need to preach a little bit to the choir sometimes and let those producers know the good things we're doing for them and the hard work we're doing, so that they know we're not wasting their dollars.
Talk a little bit about, you referenced the digital platform, so you work with a number of different contractors to accomplish some exciting things in that area.
Definitely do, and one of the more exciting things that I'm really excited about, they're going to be rolling it out towards the end of January, 1st of February, is a deal called Ask Chuck. And so almost everybody has a smartphone on them these days, and they can open it up and ask Google or ask Siri or ask Alexa. And the idea behind Ask Chuck is you're in the grocery store and you're trying to decide what kind of meat you want to take home that night, and there's a million of them out there. So you open that app up and you ask Chuck, and you say, Chuck, I'd like to, do something tender tonight. And so Chuck asks you a few questions, and it'll walk you into what kind of product you want to take home, whether it's a filet mignon, or possibly even a flat iron steak if your budget isn't quite as great. The other thing you can do when you get home and you say, hey, you know what, I got a pound of hamburger. I'd like to make something for the family. How about meatballs? I don't know how to make them. Well, you can open that app and you can ask Chuck. and Chuck will tell you how to make meatballs. It's an interactive app that we've had a lot of success, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people to try out and use.
All right, thanks to Jared Brackett with Kettleman's Beef Board joining us on AM in Kansas. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after the break for this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update.
Mark your calendars for Tuesday, March 26th in Beloit, where the first ever Stock Growers Field Day will be held by K-State Research and Extension, the Kansas Livestock Association, and the Kansas Bull Test. The event will be highlighted by a market outlook from Cattle Facts, as well as a presentation from well-known reproductive physiologist Dr. Rick Funston, where he speaks about increasing production efficiency. From there, we'll also play host to over 30 ag-based businesses in the trade show and enjoy breakout sessions where producers can listen to speakers on topics that apply directly to their operation. This event should cater to producers of all size and scale and offer a social aspect as well, so we look forward to seeing you there for the inaugural Stock Growers Field Day in North Central Kansas.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery, and so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously. So I'm tickled to death with the results, and I'd recommend this process to anyone.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Farm Bureau update.
Well, the reason I'm here today, inclement weather notwithstanding, is because I find myself in that particular slice of our populace where I make too much money for assistance, but I cannot afford my health coverage premiums. As such, I've been uninsured for about 15 months. And I've had insurance probably for 99% of my adult life. Thankfully, I was able to raise my kids and get them done before ACA clobbered us. But as of right now, I just could not afford the premiums, which would end up being over 55% of my base salary on my, quote, off the farm job. So when you start asking yourself, how many bushels of grain do I need to harvest and not count the inputs just to pay my health insurance, I mean, it just puts it in an entirely different light. I've always said you're not buying health insurance, you're buying catastrophe insurance. Just making sure that you're not financially wiped out in the unforeseen case of an injury or a disease. Thankfully, our hometown senator and representatives have been very open, very supportive. I think they understand they live the life too, living out where we live. I've tried to share with folks that aren't as familiar with the situation to look at where they're at and realize that some of us, we obviously just make too much money to get assistance, but we still can't afford the premium.
Stay with us. We'll be back after the break with Plain Talk.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways. Of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
Heinen Brothers, a fourth-generation Northeast Kansas farm family, knows how tough farming can be. Farmers helping farmers. Heinen Brothers Ag, selling and servicing crop protection products, fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, cover crops, quality aerial and ground application. Call today to learn about our extended term financing program. 800-760-4964. HeinenBrothersAg.com.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Welcome back. Now let's see what Kyle and Duane are up to on Plain Talk.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer with Plain Talk with Duane Toews.
Kyle Bauer, your fact or fiction question of the day. Onions wrongly blamed for causing...
Does your onion have a G in it?
Oh, really? Are we going to go down this road?
And you have onion. Well, I just want to make sure they're the same thing because you are pretty picky on your fact or fiction sometimes.
You're pretty picky on my pronunciation.
Am I going to answer for onion or onion?
Onion.
Onion. There we go.
Onion wrongly blamed for causing outbreaks of leprosy in 17th century Europe. Fact or fiction?
No, I think it was considered it's a fiction. It was considered a way to fix it.
I don't know about onions. However, it was the potato that got the bad rap.
Bad rap on leprosy. I got a W. Hot dog.
Put one in the W column.
You may have heard that recently there's a lot of hoo-ha around about the promised crop from God, hemp.
Okay.
Hemp. It's
I hadn't really heard it named that way.
It's going to solve all the problems of agriculture, and it came through now on the federal farm bill.
Right.
Now, just so everybody understands, hemp is not the same as marijuana.
Correct. One's industrial.
Right.
One's
and it was raised
something
widely
different.
Prior to World War II.
Okay.
It was outlawed, I believe, in 1937. Then they put it back in law during World War II because they needed the products. And then immediately after World War II, they outlawed it again.
Why?
Well, depends who you ask, and I don't want to get into that. But
is that about the Prohibition time?
Well, they actually, there's a lot of conspiracy theory people, and quite honestly, I suspect they're right, that said it had to do with the oil industry not wanting to compete with it because they could make plastics out of it, and certainly
back then, I thought all they did was made rope.
No, they did
lots
a lot
of other
things out of it too.
Okay.
Yeah, but nowadays with the hemp coming back, these are all the things that they're going to make: apparel, fabrics, bags, shoes, socks. I just didn't know we were short of
something to
make those things out of. But let's go on. Technical textiles like rope and netting and canvas and carpeting.
That we used before.
I didn't know we were short of those
we're not
things.
short, but if you can make it out of something natural instead of something unnatural.
Natural like cotton or wool?
No, like the carpet backing, a lot of that was petroleum-based.
Oh, why was it petroleum-based?
Because it was cheap.
And it did a good job.
Right.
Yeah, well, how about these building materials, fiberboard, insulation, and filler in concrete?
Okay.
Well, it seems like we have those things.
We have stuff.
We have those things
sand.
right now.
Filler in concrete would be sand.
Well, I think sometimes they put in fiberglass also to add strength to it. And I'm suspecting that's maybe where industrial products, though, like bedding and mulch and boiler fuel and absorbent. Well, wait a minute.
We've kind of got those already.
I mean, there's millions and bazillions of acres of trees in the United States are go unharvested every year because there isn't a market for them. Right. Oh, but paper, printing paper, cigarette filters, newsprint, packaging, and cardboard.
All of which currently is being made out of
pulp. Yeah.
Wood.
And we already have an industry in place to do that seems to deliver that fairly well. Oh, wait, in foods, breads,
you gotta wait so long.
Breads, granola, ice cream, milk, cereals, protein powder.
Right.
So it appears it's going to come in direct competition with all the other things that are already out there produced by farmers.
Right.
So,
but it gives them a new cash crop.
A new one that will have to have an infrastructure, will have to have its own technology, its own harvesting equipment, and I don't know. I just think
you don't sound like you're buying in on this new industrial revolution.
I think that it's a solution going in search of a problem.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.